Yo, it's been a while and I kind of feel like talking about another new Pokemon from the Legends of Arceus game. And this one's actually a little bit of an interesting case, and that's Hisuian Sneasler. A poison fighting type, very similar to like that we've had that typing before with Toxicroak, for example, but it's definitely this like every quality of Toxicroak, but it's way better than Toxicroak. Like Toxicroak has one thing over it, and that's still its dry skin. It's going to be like better in like a Kyogre format, maybe. But Hisuian Sneasler gets access to Unburden, and also the significantly better stats across the board than Toxicroak has. As you can see, this thanks to this having pretty great stat optimization, which we see a lot with new generations. And that with like old generation mons like Toxicroak, you see the stats being more balanced, but with newer generation mons, you get cases where they have like an outlier stat that's like intentionally super bad, which allows them to take better effect of their overall BST. Like 510 BST isn't particularly high, but you can see how like massive a difference it makes once you actually look at like where they put the stats of the Pokemon. But yeah, regardless, Hisuian Sneasler is significantly stronger than Toxicroak is in about every single way, making it a very unique poison fighting type that actually gives it real viability. As you can see this looking here, it's faster than Roaring Moon by 1 speed, faster than Mon like Iron Valiant, faster than mons like Persian Alola, Scream Tail without booster energy, the genies that are popular in Thundurus and Tornadus, Iron Moth. There's a lot of Pokemon that this like outspeeds that are all very, very good Pokemon. And this gives it like a lot of this sets itself a lot of like initial viability. But not to mention with Unburden, you can, and this even max Adamant, you don't even need to be Jolly at all. And you can even go lower than this, right? Since Iron Bundle reaches 306, you could realistically go 150. You probably go faster than this, honestly, but you can go around here and then you outspeed Booster Speed Iron Bundle. And that's a very important thing for it. And you can also look into calcs with like Tailwind Pokemon too, since you're going to be faster than a lot of Pokemon in Tailwind, because Unburden is a 2x speed drop, which is just insane. So if you put it next to with like a Grassy Seed, Psyseed, whatever, put it next to an DD, you can also make this Pokemon this faster than anything, even if someone has a Tailwind up. And you don't even have to use like a boosted nature with it. Like I would say probably like the optimal stat line, I would probably try to outspeed like Jolly Urshifu, right? Like 163, I would probably go like 164. And I would say that would be like generally enough. And then you can kind of send some investment elsewhere, which of course you won't need to if Sash. If Sash, you can just go like Adamant max and you'll be fine, or like Jolly max and you'll be perfectly fine. But for like a Grassy Seed set or a Psychic Seed set, having this like excess speed allows you to put like the slight enough EVs, and then you get like more value, right? And that's a pretty good trait to have with Hisuian Sneasler, since it's so fast, its speed is actually ends up being like overwhelming. Which is a case we saw with like Regieleki, where Regieleki was allowed to run like bulkier sets because like realistically Regieleki does not need to be 277 speed. And it's a similar case to Sneasler with Unburden when you use it with Grassy Seed or Psyseed. But besides that, the more interesting part, another interesting part about it is actually its move pool. While its move pool is very like Weavile-esque, it does have some benefits in the fact that it actually has like better stab moves, because Weavile actually lost knockoff, but Sneasler gets to have the strongest fighting stab, and that's close combat, while also getting access to unique moves like Feint and having unique access to like Toxic Spikes. And you also get access to like Acrobatics if you want to use that little combo of Unburden going like Terra Flying. But not to mention as well, there's a little unique trait about Hisuian Sneasler, and that's in its exclusive move, and that's Dire Claw. Dire Claw has a 50% chance to sleep, poison, or paralyze a target. And all these are this very, very, very good assets to have. Though, of course, like there's one that's like a little bit worse to have be active, and that's this King of Poison. Poison is not nearly as valuable as like sleep, and it's not nearly as valuable as paralysis. But technically, it is still a good asset to have on top of the move, since it allows you to extend further. And to speak of like poison as well, you do have access to like Poison Touch, but the reason you don't really want to run Poison Touch is with your Dire Claw move, it's often that's better you get sleep or it's better you get paralysis. So Poison Touch effectively gives you a higher chance of this getting a poison on something, But that also, this kind of acts as a bit of an anti-synergy, as you want your Dire Claw to get sleep or you want it to get paralysis. Sleep basically being able to be completely game ending. Like, we already see how powerful a Pokemon like Amoonguss is, where it sets like a Spore off, and how much people need safety goggles or how much you need to taunt it. Or with Sneasler, it's sleep if you are getting it. It's not something you can really play around unless you have like an electric terrain or misty terrain, which are two abilities that aren't really in the game right now, and both are run by fairy types. And like, so the best like misty terrain sort of get around Dire Claw ends up being you just have to kill it. You just have to kill the Sneasler before it gets the sleep off, or this pray that it doesn't. Because the minute Dire Claw goes off sleep and gets sleep, then then it can really just be game ending under the right situation. Because like on Burden speed, you're not going to be able to just outpace it. You have to use like priority moves to KO it, or you have to just get lucky and not get the Dire Claw sleep. But yeah, that's really this is a general idea of what like Sneasler individually can do, and that's a very, very valuable asset to have. Like on Burden, getting faster than Iron Bundle, getting faster than Urshifu and Tailwinds if they aren't Scarf. And this being able to do like massive damage thanks to the Dire Claw CC, having decent flying stab with acrobatics when you're using a seed. And this allows you to like have a few different approaches with running Sneasler. This being a fast fake out mon gives it a lot of utility on its own. This is a quick little example of how a Sneasler team can look. In this one, I just use like Rillaboom, and I try to take advantage of Sneasler's poison type offensive damage to have it next to a mon like Urshifu Dark. And this team, like traditionally, a lot of it doesn't necessarily deal with Heatran, which another benefit opposing Heatran, and another benefit of like Hisuian Sneasler is even if a Heatran goes like Terra Grass, right? You're still able to hit it with a Dire Claw, or in this case, you can hit it with acrobatics as well. And there's a lot of this like general value off that. You can just CC if it stays steel, and it'll still hit neutral if it goes grass, but you can also go like extended damage thanks to it going grass, and now you hit it super effectively with Dire Claw. And the only mon that really did that before was Pokemon like Landorus Incarnate, where Landorus Incarnate would have this ability to go like, hey, if you Heatran stay normal, I click Earth Power, I KO you. But if you go grass, I click Sludge Bomb and I'm KOing you. And that's like a very cool tool. And Sneasler does it a little bit better since it's a poison fighting type. So it's hitting it super effectively with its stabs rather than hitting it super effectively with its coverage. And that's a pretty neat little tool it has. And this team, the basic idea is you just have like Sneasler, Rillaboom, and then you kind of have this Thundurus to actually slow down the pace and tempo if stuff like Cresselia come out. Flutter kind of cleans up an end game a little bit. Heatran Urge. This is a general like kind of balancey team, but acting like Sneasler as a way to like pick off a lot of these general threats to this kind of concept. Like Urshifu Water can be a bit annoying, but Sneasler outspeeds it, and Tailwind, and it's fine. And you have a mono like Thundurus that can kind of like set tempo, or use Eerie Impulse. Like if you lead Thundurus plus like Hisuian and Sneasler, with Grassy Seed, you're not really able to take any special hits, but having a mono like Thundurus, right, Eerie Impulse can also allow you to enable your Sneasler to take like one hit and just get enough off that it can actually work out pretty well. Urshifu Dark as well, this being a very powerful Pokemon. Black Glass is Wicked Blow to break through something, and you use like a defensive Poison Terra. This is a nice little concept going. I made another little concept as well, this one with like Psyseed. In the Psyseed variant, you're taking advantage of like kind of offensive synergy, or Regidrago doesn't really like dealing with a Pokemon like Heatran, and like what we said before, if Heatran Terras, you can get Dire Claw and do super effective that way, but you're able to KO with like close combat and do damage through that. That adds a lot of like this fundamental value to the Hisuian Sneasler's game plan. And with a mono like Regidrago, where it doesn't want to deal with these fairy types, it doesn't want to deal with these Heatrans, Sneasler is a mon that can kind of just check both in one Pokemon, while also being a little bit game ending with its ability to quick Dire Claw next to it. So that's a nice little combination I have as well. And then finally, I actually put a little balancey team together for the sake of it. This is to say like Hisuian Sneasler can technically run on these more like slightly offensive balance teams, where you do have some relative tempo and you're using your fake out pretty aggressively and your damage pretty aggressively. But overall, you still have like some ways to slow down tempo. Like you still have a Zapdos. In this case, you have a Gastrodon that allows you to get through Urshifu Water, which would normally be a little bit of a threat here. And this kind of acts as a little bit of a nice little balance core. You have a little Tailwind alternate, you have Scarf Lando, and you have Sneasler using its more offensive tempo and taking advantage of a move like Feint. So you can do something like Hisui and Sneasler plus Flutter Mane, quick Feint, and then all of a sudden you have a KO on most things with Flutter Mane, right? Like Urshifu Water could lead into you, and you go like instead of, or like Chien-Pao D-Knight, right? If Chien-Pao D-Knight leads into you, you can bluff quicking Fake Out into the Chien-Pao, and then actually this quick Feint, and then Feint Dazzle, and then boom, you KO the Chien-Pao. And that's a nice little combination attack you have. And there's other ways to kind of abuse this as well. You could also just use like booster energy, so you don't have to worry about like the speed issue or dealing with Chien-Pao, and you can just use booster, but that makes you faster, and you can quick Feint plus the booster speed Moonblast, and that will give you a KO on like a Chien-Pao, guaranteed. There's a lot of little things you can do with that. You can use a more offensive Pokemon in the Gastrodon slot as well, like maybe, I don't know, in a Azumarill, or maybe even, let me see, this what water type? Hell, you could even just use an Urshifu straight up. Even though it doesn't necessarily have synergy with the Feint part of this, Urshifu is still a very strong offensive mon, so it's like not bad. There's like Bascu Legion also probably works as well, even though with like adaptability, and then you have like Last Respects for endgame. Though I don't think necessarily with this team, because I think you need a better Tailwind setup to make Bascu Legion more valuable. But one like Azumarill is cool. It's having Water Fairy offensive typing. Gives you a nice little burst potential as well. So there's a lot of like decent options, right, that you can use in this kind of like this overall concept, because Hisui and Sneasler is a relatively vanilla Pokemon. It's a fast fake out Pokemon that does damage. And while this is a very like simplistic role, it can actually just end up being very valuable, since its offensive typing really does hit a lot of the general metagame pretty decently. Or having like general utility in Feint, and then accidentally getting a Spore off with Dire Claw gives you a lot of like this theoretical value that is very hard to just get through overall. And yeah, that's my overall thoughts on Hisui and Sneasler. These teams will probably be on the Patreon a bit later as well, and also I will post like the general basic stuff of this that I have here in the description as well. Won't be too extended on like EV spreads or anything, because well, you know, this is how it is, right? And yeah, that's it for now. Later.